you want to give us a clap, Ethan?
Hang on.
I'll introduce you. Get your mic sorted.
All right. That were a shit clap. I'm going to do that again.
This week, Evolution. Was Crown Jewel really that bad? Chris Jericho's cruise ship, and what next for the Bullet Club?
Welcome to Staring at the Lights with Rob, Tom and Ethan. This week, quite a bumper week for pay-per-views in regards of WWE. But lots of other stuff happening as well, so we'll crack straight on. I suppose the first thing to talk about would be the Evolution pay-per-view that we previewed a couple of weeks ago when we wrote an article about it for RGM Press. And for me, this lived up to the hype that I think they wanted to. I don't know about you two, but I really enjoyed it.
Really good. Really, really good.
One of the best pay-per-views of the year, I'll be honest.
Yeah, so far.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was always going to be. Like, they had the hype to live up to, but it's not like... It's not like they never wrestled before. We'd pretty much seen all the matches before in different pay-per-views anyway, so you knew it was going to be good because we'd already seen them happen. It's just nice to see it all in one place with just the women wrestling.
It was interesting, the sort of build-up to it, how it was almost treated as like a... sort of something, I don't want to say second class, but the sort of presentation of it was almost like it's a glorified house show almost. And I thought the look of it was when, you know, how everything was dark and
looked better.
I liked it.
I kind of understand why they did it, because it just focused on the ring and rather than the crowd. Like, you know, you look at sort of like Mania where all the crowds lit up, you know, orange and purple and yellow and stuff. So I can kind of see why they did it, but I really enjoyed it. I think the matches were good. One or two that weren't sparkling, but they weren't terrible matches.
No.
Probably the standout would be the Charlotte and Becky match.
Yeah,
without a doubt.
Yeah,
match of the. I mean, like you say in your article, it's like arguably a match of the year contender. It's certainly for me the best main roster match of the year. There's not even anything. And not a single match that comes close to it, I don't think, this year. It really was of like NXT quality, like it's something you'd see down there. And like you say about the dim lights as well, that's something that they do quite often on NXT, and it really adds that kind of big event feel. But everything from the pacing to it, the build up to it, there was history and bad blood between the two, and you know, lots of like fairly extreme spots for like what the normal WWE products used to, so it was really good to see. It was groundbreaking.
The finish to it was pretty good as well. I thought the finish would have been when Becky kind of piled the chairs and the tables and everything on top of Charlotte, but then she still got up to make that 10. Before the 10 count, I thought that would have been the finish. Just, you know, and I was quite happy that it kept going.
Yeah,
because I thought I don't want it to, you know,
to
pile everything on top of it, and that'd be it. So I think that the way that they did finish it worked really well, because it just got Charlotte over as this, you know, unstoppable machine almost that can just keep going.
Even she was like technically almost up on her feet anyway, wasn't she, at the end? Like she just didn't make the count. So it's not like she was like fully flattened out.
Some really good stuff in it. I really like the sort of figure eight, even through the ladder and everything was good. I did enjoy how you could hear Mike Yoda just say "tie her up." I thought it was quite funny. Before slyly kicking her a chair, kicking Becky the chair and stuff. And then there's a photo.
He was brilliant.
The photo came out of him holding Becky's tight so she didn't fall with Charlotte on her and stuff when she put her through the table at the end. I thought it was really good. I saw a good meme of it where it said, "Not the hero we wanted, but the one we deserved." I thought it was really funny. Yeah, it was I really enjoyed it. Even the stuff that didn't work. So the spot where Charlotte tried to do a moonsault through and just overshot and bounced off the table.
Yeah.
And then they went for it again, and she did a swanton instead. I'm glad that she didn't try and do a moonsault again, because then that kind
of refreshing, isn't it?
Yeah, almost like you see that in the men's side where they'll just that spot didn't work, so let's do it again.
Yeah, let's try again.
And then we'll just pretend the first one didn't happen. They went and did something different, which I quite enjoyed.
Yeah. No, it was a really high quality match, and I think the fallout of it as well. It's like you say, with keeping Charlotte strong, it builds that feud to a level where you've got two main event stars on SmackDown now, which you didn't have for the longest time.
Yeah.
A big thing about this pay-per-view as a whole, I think, really was it was the variation in talent, because I think the big thing that I was worried about was, like, are we just going to see 6 or 7 matches of the same thing over and over again. Like whenever you get a themed pay-per-view, and I mean, I know it's only themed the fact they're all women, but whenever you get a pay-per-view that's got a certain theme running through it, you sometimes see it's just a very similar thing over and over again. How do they keep variation? But it just proves the strength and the depth of the roster. And they even brought people in who may not be known to like the wider audience. Like, you know, I mean, I know the Mae Young Classic's been going on, but for a pay-per-view of that size, having Toni Storm on there is like, it's incredible. She's not really super well known with the WWE universe, but she had a really prominent role and absolutely shone and was one of the show-stealing matches.
Yeah.
And just the fact you had that variation, which made it a really interesting watch, but also a really easy watch. Like it wasn't, you didn't feel like it was as long as a normal pay-per-view, which we used to, because there was no real matches that were just totally boring. Every match had its own thing that made it watchable. So hats off to him.
The only thing for me with the Toni Storm match was it just wasn't long enough. I think it could have been.
It was a bit short.
Longer, but they took some.
Leave them wanting though, Leave them wanting.
There was some hard bumps on there. You know, the German suplex to the apron on the outside was pretty big, and you know, Shirai's moonsault from the top outside. You know, in contrast to how Shawn Michaels did that in Crown Jewel, it was, you know, worlds apart. But I really enjoyed Evolution, and hopefully it's like a main thing now when they do it every year. I can't see why they wouldn't do after that. It was really
it needs
good.
to be one of the big pay-per-views of the year. I think it needs to be one of the big pay-per-views of the year, and eventually it should just become a point where you have like I mean, I think we were talking about this, where you maybe even have a show that is purely just on a weekly basis or a bi-weekly basis, just showcasing women's wrestling, because it's at a point now where they've got a rich enough roster, and it'll give more women a chance to work more frequently and to get on the roster. Because for the last couple of years, it's been like, well, what's your you know, what do you bring to the product? Like, we've only got so many spaces for women because there isn't a lot of time for them or whatever. But now it's like we've too many to deny them the time. In fact, let's get them more time.
Yeah, I think I think it was worked well. I think that everything worked well in every match. Even the sort of, like, we knew that Ronda Rousey was going to beat Nikki Bella, but I think the way that they kind of worked that with the interference with Brie and showing how strong Ronda is by doing that sort of Samoan drop with them both on her shoulders, I think was really good. I even enjoyed that Battle Royal. I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah,
it was like the Women's
that.
Royal Rumble was really entertaining this year, and that was as well. I feel sorry for Zelina Vega taking a hard hit to the floor, but she's a trooper, that girl. The amount of, you know, knock she's taken recently, that knee to the face
amazing.
from Brie Bella a few weeks ago, where she nearly knocked her out.
Liv, nearly killed her.
Yeah, crazy. But I really enjoyed it. Hopefully we see it again. Hopefully it's another mainstay, or, you know, it's not. I don't think it's ever going to be, you know, like up there with the big four, but it's definitely better than what, you know, Payback was, or Fastlane or something like that.
No, it'll stay around.
By far.
I like we touched on it earlier about how it would be really good if I would like to see it if they had their own kind of division within the two shows, a little bit like 205, but maybe a bit more of a prominent role than 205. And I think that's the only way you can really get the, you know, these women's tag team titles that they're kind of almost advertising themselves by giving fans these cards, a bit kind of like what KFC have been doing with these people stacking their chips off.
Conspiracy. I'm not happy with this. I'm not happy about it.
I think it's a similar thing with that.
Can we talk about KFC instead of wrestling?
I think it'd be really
ridiculous.
good if they just carried on with this sort of tag titles thing, but made it into almost cross-branded almost, and had their own show. I don't know, because I don't think the talent pool is deep enough on either side to have a Raw women's tag titles and a SmackDown women's tag titles, I don't think.
Yeah.
But KFC though, ridiculous. I know you game KFC.
That's just marketing. That's marketing 20.
Yeah, and I saw it coming, mate. They're not pulling it all over my eyes.
I honestly have no idea what you're talking about.
Right, basically, on Twitter, there's like just normal people, or supposedly normal people, tweeting about how KFC's chips are shit. And there's one tweet that got like a lot of retweets, and then KFC started promoting these tweets by people saying like the falling grace of KFC is the chips. So they're obviously going to bring new chips out soon, but they're trying to scam me into thinking
as if it's viral marketing.
Yeah, bullshit. I'm not falling for it, KFC. Fuck you.
Well, there goes that sponsor. Cheers, Ethan.
We'll
nice one.
get a KFC,
mate, I'm a Mackey's guy anyway.
I'll have to go for Popeyes or something instead.
Wendy's or something if we ever get that.
Jesus
back
Christ.
onto Evolution though.
Wrestling.
The Shayna Baszler match I thought was quite good. I liked how she got. They're really bringing the other two, Jessamine Duke and Marina. Is it Marina Shafir?
Who?
Marina Shafir.
Who?
The two that were part of
the 2 out of 3 horsewomen.
Yeah, the 2 out of the original 4 UFC 4 horsewomen now that are all signed to WWE as well.
Yeah.
And I think it's been talked about before where they're going to eventually, have a maybe even next year's Survivor Series where they have a 4-on-4 where it's the sort of the WWE 4 horsewomen against the UFC 4 horsewomen. But it's hard to do that.
A lot of horse people in wrestling, isn't there?
Yeah,
it's hard to do
that in the WWE sense.
I am a non-gender descript horse person.
It'd be hard to do that on the WWE side of things just because of where all the women stand in the company at that time. Obviously, 2 of them are on SmackDown, 2 of them are on Raw, so that it's
And you got to think like the WWE lasses are just going to get buried. Like if that ever comes to it, I mean,
of course.
I mean, it's like you got to build Ronda, but also it's for believability's sake. It's like, when are we going to cross the line? When it's just like, if you've ever been in UFC, other than CM Punk, you're just going to come in and just smash people's faces in.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, you could always put a shenanigans thing on it and just have them get outsmarted, but I think they need to start to accept that even if you're a mixed martial artist, once you move on into wrestling, different ball game. Like you just because you're a great mixed martial artist doesn't mean you're a great pro wrestler. And I think they need to start looking at that as potentially a thing, because you've got the problem of more and more mixed martial artists are wanting to make the move over to wrestling because, well, the money's great and you don't get your head bashed in quite as much. I mean, probably more regularly, but not quite as severely.
No.
And you've got to start to draw that line where you go, yeah, you had a good MMA record, but this is the WWE. It's kind of like Steve Blackman and Ken Shamrock. Like, yeah, you were great, legit shoot fighters, but what do you really bring to the product? Absolutely. And I think when they just start saying, oh, this was a UFC champion, therefore top of the card for you, it's kind of like start to have a bit more pushback from a stance of WWE. We're a different kind of hard.
It makes them look weak, innit? Like when they just come in and just like shoot, almost like it's a fake shoot fight, and it's like, well, that's not wrestling. That's not what wrestling is. So
exactly.
It's like when Brock came back and beats and faced Cena at Extreme Rules, and he was like,
I didn't
hitting
like that.
knees and like throwing knees and like takedowns and it's like, why are you still pretending that you're in the UFC when you're in a WWE ring? It's a bit ridiculous, but.
Absolutely.
I get why they do it, but it's just a bit shit.
Yeah, you can see the sort of potential there to do that, but like you say, why do you want to sort of bury your own product to show to get other people in, to get some more money, or some other people in?
Money in it.
All in all, it was great. In such contrast to Crown Jewel, which had so much negativity around it anyway, that. It's just an exhibition show, isn't it, really? It's got no bearing in any storyline, really, or anything that's going to happen in the long run. Obviously, if Roman was still well and he was in that match, he would have gone over, he'd have been the champion. It was probably just, a case of bringing Brock back just because they wanted to see him over there in that match. But it wasn't even just the sort of negativity around what had happened in the build-up to Crown Jewel, but the matches themselves were just so, like...
It's terrible.
So lazy. How can you get...
There's
the sort of the Braun Strowman and Brock Lesnar thing, like, how can you build Braun Strowman up all this time about how he's this monster and he can flip ambulances and lorries and all this kind of thing, and then he loses to Brock in 3 minutes?
Because Brock's Brock, innit? Brock's a monster.
But...
Yeah.
You're selling someone else as a bigger monster than him, almost.
Yep.
And pushing this.
No, they are. They're not. It's not. I'm not saying it's right what they're doing, but like
undermining that man's monstrosity.
Yeah, of course.
The thing is,
how much monster can a monster be?
Mate, get a can of Monster. That'll sort you right out. But I'm wanting that sponsorship and all. A big thing people have pointed to is that obviously there's been a massive amount of controversy and a little bit of disgrace shone on the company after such a kind of massive event like Evolution.
Yeah.
And a big thing people have pointed to is, did they formulate these matches to kind of just meet the status quo and not ruffle any feathers so they don't have anything historic to talk about, so they don't have to put anything in the history books? I mean, if you think about it, no titles changed hands other than Brock retaining, and a lot of the stuff is like non-consequential other than that. Like,
I think it would have always been like that though, because it is just a house show that's been put on the network.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, and I suppose last time when Brock won that big green belt, that's never been seen again. But
the Braun
won that.
Yeah, I mean, it's such an unusual thing. Like you say, you could read it from that angle, but then also it's also the night they choose to reinstate Hulk Hogan, and the night they choose to give Shane McMahon a World Cup as best in the world, which a few people are citing as a kind of FU to the CM Punk fans. And it's hard to even know. At this point, I feel like analysing it would take psychologists a long time and a lot of work, because you're dealing with the mind of a crazy person.
Yep.
And there's no clear-cut answer. You can ask all day, like, what's going on, but honestly, it just doesn't make any sense. The deeper you go, the more insane it gets.
It's interesting with the sort of Shane McMahon thing, because it wasn't until... So Tuesday, they'd had the SmackDown episode where the crowd were all chanting CM Punk, which they will whenever they're disappointed with anything, they start chanting CM Punk. And that's kind of like, okay, we leave. It's not coming back, so just leave that as it is. And then a few days later, they start selling the winner of the crown jewel as the best in the world.
Best in the world.
And that's where a lot of people are like, well, this is probably why they put Shane over in this way, was because now they're claiming now, he's won the World Cup and now he's the best in the world. And that, like you said, is a big two fingers up to the
it's a McMahon, isn't it?
And all that kind of thing.
It's a McMahon.
Dave Meltzer reported, I think, the last day or two that this was always the plan, was to have Shane go over in this way because this is the start of Shane's heel run. Where he's now going to be a heel general manager, and then eventually at Survivor Series he's going to go against the returning Kurt Angle. The match with Kurt Angle, so he's taken all this time out to say, I'm training, I'm pretending that he's on vacation or whatever, and he's been suspended by Seth McMahon in Raw and all the sort of storyline stuff. But then him saying that I'm taking time out because I'm training and I want to be in the best shape I can, and then he loses in the first round of this tournament. Like not even pushed to the semi-final or anything.
I don't know, mate. I didn't watch it. I didn't watch any of it, so I can't even help you out on that.
No,
I'm just sitting quietly.
I watched. I tried to watch it. Like, I started it up when I got home. I wasn't watching it live, but I started it up and I saw Hogan return, and like I have mixed feelings on that because he's the guy who got me into wrestling, and I will usually put him in my like number one spot as like my favorite wrestler. And I know it's hard because of some of the horrible, heinous shit he said, which is totally unforgivable. So it's a weird kind of confliction of like, I like the idea of him being back in the Hall of Fame, but do I like the idea of them rolling him out at an event which is arguably very driven on like race and bigotry and all these kind of horrible things that are going on, and they decide, let's bring Hogan back there? Or it would have likely been better if they just kept it quiet, said, look, you're back in the Hall of Fame for historical purposes, we want you to continue to do your charity work, but the limelight, it's just not yours anymore. You've spoiled it, and there's no coming back from
that's
it.
not the way the Hulk works, is it? Hulk could have asked to have been put on.
I wonder if that was the plan all along. When they announced Crown Jewel was before that they'd said, they'd restarted him. But I think the only reason I say that is because the last event that they had, the Greatest Royal Rumble, where the Saudi Prince was like, I want Rusev in this match. He was the one who wanted Rusev in the casket match. He was the one who wanted Chris Jericho and Rey Mysterio in the Greatest Royal Rumble.
He's booked it.
He pretty much did. He also said that he wanted, out of the four people he chose, he wanted Yokozuna or Warrior. That's why we saw the sumo wrestler in the Greatest Royal Rumble match last time round. So he's
because it's the ones he knows, isn't it?
Yeah, so he's having a massive say. So I wouldn't surprise me if he said, for this thing I want Hulk Hogan, and they've had to sort of push back a little bit and say, well, okay, he can have some kind of, he can introduce it or he can process it.
It's purely blood money. Like, if you only get $50 million, then if somebody says, I want Hulk Hogan, you're probably going to ring Hulk Hogan and be like, come and jump on the show for us.
Yeah.
Have either of you two watched Futurama?
Yes.
Bits of it,
yeah. You know the episode where the aliens are watching Ally McBeal, because it's so far away, they're only just getting Ally McBeal 2,000 years in the future, and they're coming to invade Earth and they want to see Ally McBeal, and they're like, well, they're all dead, so they have to stage Ally McBeal. It's kind of like this. They're having to stage this ridiculous farce.
It's exactly what this is.
It's
exactly what this is.
I stayed away from it. I didn't watch it out of protest. And again, like, I know I'm only one person. I don't really make much difference to their numbers, but like, I couldn't give them my 3 hours, whatever it was, for what they should never have gone ahead with that pay-per-view, in my opinion, because of what
I don't blame you.
with the Saudi Arabia.
I watched it for the sort of a purpose about talking about it, and we write stuff for.
I know I probably should have watched it.
That's kind of why I did watch it.
I probably should have watched it.
But I did watch it, through my hands almost, because everything that happened, you're like, wow, why have you done that?
I also didn't watch it because I didn't want to see Shawn Michaels wrestle again, and I think I made the right choice according to what happened in that match. I've seen clips of it that were like unavoidable.
You definitely have. Because that was a couple of podcasts ago. I said like Shawn Michaels can probably still go, and if anyone can, Shawn can. And I mean, I had to watch that match out of
I said in the first one, I don't want him to come ever wrestle again. I think I was right.
I had to watch out of sheer curiosity, and he definitely was the best performer in that match, but that is really not saying anything because like they were all terrible. Triple H tore a pec early on, and he could barely work. Kane's wig and mask fell off. Undertaker was just
that whole incident with Michaels pulling his mask off by accident, and the ease of that came off was not right. That just you're not wearing it most but it just summed that whole event up.
Yeah,
it summed that whole thing up for me.
Did you see right at the end when that's like I say, that's the only match I watched because I had to turn off after the Hulk Hogan thing. So I just felt sick. I felt like what it just made me feel embarrassed and disgusted. But at the very end of the Shawn Michaels Triple H match, they sat in the corner. Triple H's pecs torn off his body, and Shawn Michaels' head's all bust open, and you can see Shawn just mouth, "We're too old for this." And it's like, yeah, you are. And it's in a weird way, like that would have been a cool moment if they'd have put on an amazing match and then collapsed in celebration and gone, "We're too old for this," like kind of Die Hard or something like that. But this was embarrassing.
That, probably wasn't meant to be caught by the microphone or the cameras as
well.
Oh yeah. Otherwise,
a lot of it as well.
More of it.
Oh yeah, I think. Obviously, Shawn Michaels not an idiot. He probably knew that match sucked. I bet all of them knew that match sucked.
Oh, 100%. They all
probably recognised that it was terrible. And I mean, like, I think it was interesting that I can't remember if it was Meltz that was saying back in the days of when Shawn and Triple H were younger, and they were like, kind of laughing at Ric Flair because he was still wrestling into his 40s and 50s, and he could have worked rings around them at 50. He could have worked rings around them at their in their prime, and now they're the guys that are now the old ones that are still trying to put matches on and it's like
Rick could probably still outwork him now. I'll be honest.
To be fair,
like looking at that, like Rick's last match was better than this match, and Rick was way older than any of the guys in that ring.
And I get why they're doing it. Like, and I get the money's hard to turn down because, like, I think Undertaker said years and years ago that he didn't want to be the guy that just stuck around for a paycheck. And it's alright to say that when you're young and you're fit and you're able, but when you're older and you've got kids and a family and somebody's offering you ludicrous amounts of money to just get hurt for 30 minutes, 25 minutes, it's probably very hard to say no. So I get it, but I don't want to see that happen.
You know what? It's the old Harvey Dent line in it. You either die a villain or you live long enough. No, you die a hero or you live long enough to become a villain.
You live long enough to become the hero.
Or you're Minoru Suzuki and you just go in and beat the shit out of 4-year-old bastards. Because he can still go and he's 50. But
that was the thing about this. The 4 guys in that ring for the main event of Crown Jewel had a combined age of 206.
Yeah,
and that's just not. It's just not right. It's not right. And I get why other people didn't want to go, and for whatever reasons, obviously Daniel Bryan didn't want to go for reasons that weren't just about what had happened in the build-up to it, but his whole beliefs, and that's great. And the same, Sami Zayn was the same with the Greatest Royal Rumble and his objections to it. Hopefully, this doesn't put someone like Daniel Bryan in any... they don't bury him because he's decided not to go to this.
No, well, I don't think they've got much of a choice. I mean, the thing is, you look at these 4 guys, and this can only damage their stock. Like, especially like The Undertaker and Kane, because for years they were lauded about, we trust them because they're safe and they're dangerous. And, Triple H was dangerous and Shawn was dangerous.
Kane clearly put Triple H through the wrong table with that chokeslam because it was the one
and he was gassed.
Cleared, and he was... Like, he legitimately smashed those monitors up with his back to the point of, like, he could have broke a rib there. He could have, fractured anything, and he looked absolutely awful. The report coming out that he's torn this pec muscle out, and he's not going to be right until SummerSlam has completely got rid of any slight build up to him having this Batista match, which was teased a few weeks ago. That's all gone.
Broken my heart. That has ripped my heart in two.
I think out of anything of this pay-per-view, that's the worst bit of news we could have had.
Yeah.
Hey, that's ruined me. That absolutely ruined me. And it's not Batista's fault that Triple H is just gammon steaks held together with cheese string. It's ridiculous. It's not Batista's fault. No. They shouldn't have done this. They should have replanned it. They probably should have had this match, make it maybe a 15-minute long thing, and then had AJ and Joe close the show or something like that. But when you're performing for a Saudi prince who wants to see his favourites, like, you've really just got to do what the guy with the money wants.
There were just those little things.
It's killed them off. Like, I mean, in a month, the share prices fell from like $90 to $70.
Wow.
Which is massive, but again,
massive. And that was really on the rise as well. Their stock for quite some time. It was
doing well, but if you get in again, I think it was like if you get in 50 million, then does it really matter if you're losing?
It feels like short-term profit sacrificing long-term gains.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, definitely. It's pretty ridiculous, but It's Vincent.
You've got to pick a camp. Like, if you think about it, Evolution is them. Maybe it doesn't make a massive amount of money now, but it's securing them a legacy of like a future and making a change and being proactive and encouraging a different brand of wrestling that most people haven't seen before.
Yeah.
And it's something that will explode and be massive. And it just means you just have to put yourself behind it. But when you're doubling down and putting half your money on bigotry and, you know, fucking all this horrible political mess, then you can't really say we're on the side of change when really you go, we're on the side of change unless the money's right, and it just looks awful.
Yeah,
looks awful.
I can't think of any positives to come out of this pay-per-view at all. Probably the only thing I could think of as slightly positive was that Renee Young got to do co-commentary. Yeah, and they didn't keep her away like they did in the last one they had there, where they was just like, right, no one's here for it.
Yeah, and one thing as well, it's like it's nice for like Saudi Arabian wrestling fans who have no political interest and they're not part of the bigger thing, that they actually get to see a live WWE event, which is great. But it's just the backing and the funding and the political side of it, which is terrible. Because a lot of the posts on
those fans get to see that for 300-400 yards away, because the first
couches and the chaise long and the front rows,
comfy couches and whatever, and the real sort of fans.
It's a bit of a shame, But I do get a kick out of seeing the posts on Squared Circle of the young, like, Saudi Arabian wrestling fans who are so happy, like, oh, this is me seeing the Undertaker live. This is the best moment ever, and you think like that's a kind of heartwarming thing to take away, which is nice. But unfortunately, it's never going to compare to the shower of shit, which is the the actual realistic of it.
Yeah, there's a few fans that posted like things, and sort of a couple of people asked them like, "What did you think to the show?" And they said like, "Being there, it was great, but I think if I was sat at home watching it, I'd have hated it." And it's like that's from an actual fan that was there.
Yeah.
So it's like,
and that's you wouldn't get wrapped up in it because you're wrapped up in all the hype.
You do. It's like you go to a house show and you enjoy it because you're there. But when if I was to watch a house show like on demand, I'd probably just turn it off within 10 minutes because it's just not great. But when you're there, it's fun, isn't it? Because you're getting involved.
Last week we also had the Chris Jericho cruise.
The Jericho cruise. The cruise of Jericho. The Rock and Rager. The Slam Down at Sea.
It's ridiculous.
This has only just gone on onto, I think it's on Fight, FITE.com.
Fight Network, yeah.
Fight Network, it's on there. And it's going on Ring of Honor, their streaming service, because they are the ones that's going to provide the ring. So there's not much we can say in what we've watched of it, because it's only just gone live, and obviously we weren't there, and they weren't streaming the whole event from the Bahamas or wherever they were sailing down to. But we do have a lot of the results through. And I think the biggest thing probably to come out of any of it was the sort of interview thing they had afterwards, where the Elite said that they are no longer part of the Bullet Club.
Yeah,
big deal.
It was coming, wasn't it, for a long time.
I mean, they'd kind of announced it, hadn't they, with the split from Tama Tonga and the OGs, and it makes sense. But I mean, it's just a shame of that massive warehouse full of those virginity protecting T-shirts. Like, what's going to happen to them? Like, do they give them over to Tama? Do they sell them at wholesale cost? Like,
yeah, it's weird.
Who inherits them?
Yeah, Cody said himself, like, because I guarantee that's one of the reasons why they haven't announced it for a long time.
Yeah.
Like Cody said, on the cruise, he said, we love it. We love looking out and seeing all these Bullet Club shirts, and thank you very much for buying them, and thank you for buying any kind of independent wrestlers T-shirts. But we are no longer part of the Bullet Club, and it's like, I bet they're weeping inside because of the thousands and thousands of dollars they're going to lose because they're not selling those Bullet Club shirts anymore.
No, but I think the last 6 months or so, they're probably the biggest selling T-shirts on something like Pro Wrestling Tees. Would probably the Young Bucks Super Kick ones.
No, they were.
Is it still the Bullet Club?
Hot Topic and stuff, which is where they sell them. The Bullet Club and the Marty Scurll, like the villain party, are all the highest selling shirts. So they're definitely going to feel it. But they'll just make some elite ones, and then they'll sell more anyway.
Yeah,
so
it won't take long.
No worries.
Those guys are the ones that people were buying the shirts for.
Yeah, they weren't buying them for like Jay White and people like that. Definitely not. It was always coming, and it's been coming for a very long time. And I think it was quite kind of like anticlimactic because they were building it up on Twitter, like they kept like tweeting dates out and stuff like that, and it was people were like really cryptic and nobody really knew what was going on, and they were like, are they going to WWE? Like, are they going this way and that way? And it was like we'd all been expecting this to come, so I was expecting something more than just we're not actually part of Bullet Club anymore. But yeah, I get it. They had to happen at some point because. How long's it been now that they've not really ever been seen with the rest of Bullet Club. Like, I can't remember the last time I saw all of them. With
I mean, to be fair, if you look at it, like
maybe January, maybe
I don't even know.
early January at Wrestle Kingdom, maybe I don't know.
It's been a long time, and I mean, they had when they did the firing squad thing. Was that just after Wrestle Kingdom where they kind of stabbed them all in the back and they kind of denounced their involvement in the Bullet Club again? The Bubble Club, brilliant. So yeah, it's one of those things. I suppose when you look at the original Bullet Club with Finn Balor and the boys. Those guys sold the merch, whereas Tama Tonga, Gorillas of Destiny, those guys in the kind of OG crew, yeah, they were a big part of it, but they were never the guys selling the merch and the tickets. No. And then the Elite got involved with the books, and they took it to new heights. And I suppose it's been a long time coming where they can actually go, this thing Finn Balor invented, we've become something completely different to what that ever was now. Oh, yeah. And it's good that I'm glad they finally got their own brand and something they can say, we created this, because even though Finn started the Bullet Club, the link between the Elite and the Bullet Club is kind of like the link between the Elite and NWO. It's something completely different. And like whatever the Elite is, Balor can't really take any credit for that. The books have done it on their own back with obviously Cody and Kenny, and that's their own thing now. And it's nice to see that they've got something that's completely theirs, and no one can go, oh, they weren't the inventors of it, or they weren't the originals. Yeah, so I think it's wicked.
Yeah, like we said, it's probably maybe it has run its course. Maybe that's it now. We know things have a shelf life, don't they, in wrestling, and maybe that's just that natural end to it all. I think.
Yeah, it'll still carry on.
It was interesting today. Chris Jericho did a little bit of an interview about how, with him sort of doing so well in New Japan, which we'll probably touch on in a bit, about how he's probably not going to be able to return to WWE, not in the next sort of year or so anyway. No. He would have never been able to put this kind of show on if he was signed to WWE anyway. I know he asked them if they would like to be involved, and they sort of took a while for them to end up saying no, but he wanted to push it as a bit of an NXT thing. So I think it'd be tough for him to go back because he's just doing so much better away from him.
Oh yeah.
For me, anyway. I mean, I think he'll obviously go back for the occasional appearance, but he is one of those guys in 2017/18 is going to be remembered in history as one of the pioneers who broke free of the one company system. Him and Cody and obviously the guys over at New Japan who've been the real like bedrock where they've been allowed to kind of flourish from. They're going to be remembered as the guys who made independent wrestling viable. Like obviously there's thousands of other people involved in it, but these guys are kind of at the forefront because they've got the voice, they've got the say, and they've got the experience from working with WWE that they know, hey, you know what, like there is going to be something else other than WWE, and you are going to be able to earn a really, really, really good living and be successful outside of that corporate environment. And this thing that he's done, I mean, who would have imagined it would happen in bloody international waters on a cruise ship with a bunch of rock bands there as well. And it's the most insane kind of collection of things, but I feel it's a real pivotal moment, and it might seem a bit daft, but it's gonna go down in history, well, in wrestling history anyway. So let's get to having a rundown of the matches, shall we?
Yeah, so the I don't know if these are in any kind of order because these ones that we've just sort of found, but yeah, the Young Bucks defeated LAX in a tag match. Apparently this was really good. Everyone was really happy with it. They had great chemistry, even though they've never really wrestled each other before.
Yeah.
The sort of Sea of Honor tournament thing happened as well, which at one point saw the Briscoes take each other on.
Oh God!
Too racist.
They should have
we've seen these guys live as well, and even when you see them live, you're like, ugh.
Yeah, you don't.
They're scary. Yeah.
They did have a bit of a kind of Survivor Series style match where 5-on-5 between Ring of Honor and Impact.
I thought that was really cool, actually. Yeah. Like it's Ring of Honor and Impact have got this. It's weird because they're kind of looking over different sides of the fence at each other and seeing, like, you've got a lot behind you, we've got a lot behind us. Like it's this weird culmination of all these companies starting to look together and think like, WWE can't possibly have full market share. For every Coca-Cola, there's got to be a Pepsi. How about we could really capitalize on this? But I suppose it's just about people being willing to give up some power for the sake of something overall the greater good. Because in my opinion, the only thing that can compete with WWE, the greater good, is giving the talent the reins and not doing a WCW where you get a bunch of TV writers, or you get a bunch of people who think they know better to run the show. You say, let's get the people who are actually putting on the best shows that the real hardcore wrestling fans will watch and will want to watch, and that's what's going to be the next boom if they can do it right and if they can really give the talent the reins. And this is just the starting point for it. But that match, like I've heard great things about it.
Yeah, and I think kind of touching on that point as well. We've seen what can happen with this cruise, with Cody and Matt and Nick doing the All In, which they're keen to do for next year as well. That was a great success to say. It's an independent show, and how many they, it's sold out in 30 minutes and
something like that.
Crazy.
Yeah. 30 minutes or less. You could order a Domino's pizza and it'll be sold out by the time it got there.
Crazy.
One of the matches that was on as well kind of had something that we wanted to see, but not quite. So Sami Callihan defeated Marty Scurll in an Anything Goes Anywhere on the ship match, where Sami Callihan got thrown into the pool, but not over into the sea, which we were hoping for.
Yeah, a bit good about that, not gonna lie. I would have hoped somebody would have fell into the sea.
I'm hoping for a Titanic spot where someone King of the World, like they get him on the end of the bow, hold their arms out and do a razor's edge off the front of the boat. That'd have been cool. Sick. Spot and a half, mate. But yeah, like I like that. At least they use the kind of like off something into a pool. Like that's cool, man. That's wicked.
To do it at some point.
Yeah, that was cool. And I think the sort of the headlining match would have been was Kenny Omega, Cody Rhodes, and Marty Scurll defeated Jericho and the Young Bucks in a 6-man tag. I thought that Jericho might have wanted to put himself over for this, as it's my show, I'm going over.
He's
but
not like that.
He knows the business, doesn't he? And he knows that those three guys are the ones that are the future of it almost. So.
Yeah, speaking of that, and I don't want to jump ahead too far, but Jericho's whole thing of like putting the guys over who need to be put over. I think the match that he had at the recent New Japan show is really a great example of where that's leading, and how he puts the pieces in place and plans to put people over and make them better off for working with Chris Jericho at the end of it than they were when they went in. So Chris Jericho is, you can't call him a selfless guy because he's always got himself in mind, and that's why he's had such a long career and been so successful. But on the backside of that, he realizes that he can't be as successful as you want without putting other people over and putting them in a good position. Like you say, I was surprised. I'd thought he'd have gone over on his own cruise, but then it really does make sense because you've got Kenny Omega across the ring from you, and Kenny Omega needs to be protected. Like if you can protect him, he is the one kind of like diamond outside of WWE where it's like, yeah, your top guy's good, but is he Kenny Omega? So I think that Jericho knew that. Jericho knows the value of Kenny, and even though I don't feel Kenny even knows his value quite as much as some people do, but yeah, I think it was the right choice for Jericho to have them go over.
Yeah, he's raising the profile of other people, and in the minute he's doing it where he's raising the profile of New Japan in other countries. Much like Cody did with raising NWA's profile. Yeah, taking the title off Nick Aldis and then sort of losing it back to him. Sort of speaking of Jericho, then. We also had, it must have been a few days later, they must have had a pretty tight schedule, but they also had the Power Struggle pay-per-view for New Japan, where he retained his IC title by submission over Evil, which I didn't think would be the finish, but...
I get it, because I feel like this is the way of transitioning the US title onto Naito, because obviously Naito appeared at the end of the match and Jericho was like flipping everyone off and stuff, and I feel like this is going to lead to Jericho doing the honours for Naito and then transitioning the US title onto it. Little known fact about the US title. No, I'm not going to go in there. I know fuck all about it, but that's where I reckon is going to happen.
Well, has anyone that's not American won the US title yet?
Well, this was for the IC title.
No, the
okay, yeah, I get you.
Because obviously Jericho
title thing again, and we got
confused. Yeah, we are again. Let's not go there. But I feel that Jericho, Jericho's going to keep being strong, so they can elevate the status of the US belt, and then they can get that onto Naito. But I don't know, Ethan, if any Americans have held the US. Oh, Cody held it.
No, if anybody that's not American, I said.
Well, Jericho's Canadian.
Canadian. Kenny Omega's
Kenny's Canadian. Jay White's Canadian.
Is he? I thought Jay White's from New Zealand.
Is he? Oh wait, yeah, he is. Yeah.
We don't know anything about wrestling. We don't know anything about wrestling. No, I just didn't know if any actual Japanese people had held the US belt yet.
No. Interesting enough, though, on the same pay-per-view, there was a Rev Pro Wrestling British Heavyweight Championship match.
Yes.
Yeah, with Ishii.
Ishii and Suzuki. Really hard match, which Ishii retained the title. And I think that touches on what you were saying earlier about how New Japan have got it right with, the old guys, how a match should work and how they've adapted their style to suit their age almost. But also how companies like New Japan are willing to bring in other companies and have their titles on their shows.
Yeah, definitely.
It's how you say it's that sport divide, isn't it? Like WWE, everything has to be insular. Everything has to be within their ecosystem. It's like anything that happens outside is almost non-consequential, whereas other companies are always kind of a little bit more willing to go, you know what, you can defend your belt on our show because
it's only because they have the working partnership with Rev Pro though, like New Japan and Rev Pro have a partnership.
Yeah, they do.
That's the reason why. But yeah, it makes sense. They bring over. I think I saw Jay White in a US title match in Altrincham on a Rev Pro show.
Yeah.
Because Rev Pro and New Japan have the relationship with each other. But yeah, New Japan are one of the only real guys that do that. Because they do sign talent. It's not like an independent thing where you just go and work for New Japan. Like you are signed on a contract.
Oh, you are signed, yeah.
But PWG, Ring of Honor, Rev Pro, they all, New Japan's very open in their relationships and letting a lot of their wrestlers go and work elsewhere. Which is
good.
It's
good for the industry.
Absolutely.
It's really good for the industry. And I think WWE are only just now realizing it, that because obviously they're doing stuff like with Pete Dunne, and they're having a lot of their guys. They're saying, okay, you can do this, or you can do stuff that maybe isn't that expected, because I think the new breeds, Triple H's guys, they kind of understand the value of having your brand seep out into other brands, and how that's the best way to gain the best talent from around the world. That's why New Japan's historically always been better, because they're willing to take on almost anyone onto their brand as long as they meet the mark. But
I think something I've noticed with WWE recently is they're starting to reference other promotions.
They are.
They did it in the Evolution pay-per-view where they reference, Toni Storm was the first Progress Women's title, women's champion. Even at Crown Jewel, Michael Cole referenced New Japan with AJ Styles, I think it was. So they're kind of, I don't know, when they kind of get over themselves a little bit and they realise that competition between everybody is healthy. New Japan are never going to be as big as WWE in America, not one bit.
Not in America, no.
But there's nothing wrong with trying to have that working relationship like they used to in the late 80s, early 90s. WCW did it. They had a relationship with New Japan.
Yeah.
And surely what you want is to spread the wrestling around the world as this thing that
I think
everyone could be into.
It's very much Vince's mentality. It's the idea of a CEO who, you get competition and he likes competition, but he likes he needs them to be as strong as him because he likes to crush and he likes to win. Whereas if you had someone like Triple H, who's very much more of I'd say he's more of a savvy operator. Vince is very much I'm going to crush you because I'm better than you. And it's all about I'm going to beat the competition. Whereas Triple H seems to be more let's see how we can help each other. I don't think Vince McMahon is as good a backstage politician as Triple H is, because he's arguably the greatest backstage politician of all time. He's ridden it from bottom to the top. So I think when you get someone like that in power, it's going to be interesting to see someone who can operate like that, but on a wider scale level. It's going to be a really interesting shift when it does happen. But I think you can start to see that shift primarily because Vince is yielding a little bit of control, and people with a little bit more acumen are kind of going. Not that Vince McMahon isn't one of the greatest businessmen of all time, but it's a different style of business. It's more of a Donald Trump style of corporate takeover business with Vince. But when you get to see that slick, savvy, you scratch my back, I'll scratch your kind of thing, you do seem to get a little bit more for your money.
You do, and it's I think part of it just comes from the fact that we're lucky that Vince doesn't watch a lot of anything else really. He doesn't really pay attention. He doesn't pay attention to NXT. He doesn't really watch that. He doesn't watch anything UK based. He doesn't watch the UK brand. He's even stopped. He's not doing every single Raw and SmackDown like he used to as well. He's kind of pulled out of a few dates on that.
I'm worried about him.
Yeah,
I think 205 Live is for the better now that he's given.
Yeah, now that he's not. But again, and I think we just got to be lucky that he's not involved in it all. But the clever thing with Triple H and that is if you look at it in like the long term aspects, it always looks like Tom said, like you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. But Triple H always comes out on top in the end of it all.
Always comes out on top,
and it's clever because, like I say, it's you're still getting the talent that you need, and you're kind of helping each other out, and you're getting promotion out of it. But Triple H always goes, and it's kind of ironic that he always brings a shovel out anyway. But in the end of things, Triple H,
mate, he's got that special corporate shovel.
He has, mate. And I say, but WWE always come out on top, and there's nothing wrong with that if the other company still survives and thrives. Like, because as you were saying, Tom, Vince would just shut companies down to be the only one left. He would just ruin other people's lives and families and put them out of work because he could.
That's the thing, though. That's a shame. Like, you see people like that who's the mentality of them: I'm the best in the world, or we're the best because there's no competition.
Because there can be nobody else to be better than us.
We've got rid of everybody.
Yeah, and when you do think about it, like when you think back to the territory days, that a lot of men either could have joined Vince's ship or sank with their own and lost probably had to sign on, bless them, because they had
all stubborn, innit?
They had no left. Like, he just took their lives away from them because he could. And I think Triple H is kind of like saying, you're going to still keep your job, and you're probably going to you're going to be better off for it than anything else. But either eventually you're A, going to join me and become part of WWE or NXT, or B, in the end of this, I will be the one that's winning. And
I'm taking you anyway. Are you with us or against us? Yeah.
It's a clever way of doing things. It's a very, very clever way of doing things. And I think, God forbid, when Vince does pass on Triple H, that we will see a lot more of that in the main roster side of things, because he'll just try. I mean, Vince is no mug. Triple H is no mug. Sorry. He will see how popular NXT is getting to the independent audience. And it's evident in a lot of the shows that they're putting on, like with the Mae Young Classic now, where he's coming out after matches and like holding hands up, and like when in the what was the tournament called, the first one they did with all the Cruiserweight Classic, when it was like the Cedric Alexander match after it had finished, was it, where he came out and like they were all like chanting "sign this guy," and he held his hand up, and that was like evident that he was listening to the independent audience.
He builds.
What was great about that, especially with the Cruiserweight Classic, is that they use companies like Progress to leverage that. They had qualifying matches there. Like Flash Morgan was in there. He had a qualifying match during a Progress event for
and again,
the
that's
Cruiserweight.
and that's evident. Like as I was saying, like that's Triple H almost saying, you can, we'll give you this part of it, but the finals are going to be with us in Florida. Like we are going to earn this eventually, but you're more than welcome to help us out along the way, and we'll help you out a little bit. And it's just it's a great way of doing business.
Whenever you kind of look at history and you look at the great like dictators and the people who rise to power, they always capture the youth first, and they always find a way to like. I mean, you don't want to compare Triple H to an evil dictator, but you always find that exactly. You always find that these people will look and they'll sow their own agents into the system gradually and systematically until they own the whole thing. Stalin was a lot like that. Now, I don't want to compare Triple H to Stalin, but Stalin took control of the bureaucracy, he took control of different segments, and he sowed his seed. So by the time it came for him to take power, everyone was his. They were all his boys. So and that's what Triple H has done for the majority of his career. He's did it in a front of house setting where he'd get all the wrestlers on side with the Click and the DX, and he'd have all his boys, and now he's doing it from a corporate point where he's like, all these young people who are going to be main eventing, they're all going to have this bond to me, where I was the one who held their hands up during their greatest moment, and I was the one who was there, and I'm this father figure to them, and I'm going to just exploit the shit out of them.
It's very manipulative.
You see it with every kind of like, you see it with every kind of like title or title change that ever happens. The first thing that happens is it's a photo with Triple H and Gorilla.
And it's clever. It's really clever because I say it cements, like it's like flashbulb memories, isn't it? Like like that's probably like the best moment of your life, or up to that point. When you're a bit older and you think back to that moment, what do you remember? You remember getting the pin. You remember going backstage. You remember Vince hugging you and taking a photo with Triple H hugging you and taking a photo with you. Like he's cementing that idea in all their heads that he's the one that's got them to this point. So it's perfect when it does come to Judgment Day, and it's either you're with me or against me.
When the day comes,
when the day comes, you're going to either be with me or you're going to not have a job anymore. And it sounds harsh to say it, but
Hogan style of business, isn't it?
Nah, genuinely. It genuinely is, and I think that's probably where he got it from. Is looking back at because he was, a babby when Hogan was at the top of his
Hogan Warrior when he held his hand up and left, and the crowd were all looking at him.
Yeah, exactly.
Warrior were in the ring,
exactly. He's learned it from the best person that ever did it. In terms of being a manipulative bastard, but it's very, very
a micey little bastard.
Micey little bastard. He is. No, they both are, and I think, and that's why Hulk Hogan's back, because he probably got in Vince's ear and said, this.
Can you imagine how much dirt he has on Vince over the years?
Oh God, too much to count. Too
much. Reams and reams. Remember 72, brother. remember that, brother.
But that's why it'll be back. Like, what was it? When was it that Vince? That Hulk said. Was it WCW when they were like they laid out the entire match room, like they were dead set on this being the finish. Vince Hulk's he's laying down, he's going to take the pin. Hulk listened to the entire layout and then was like, "That's great, but what I think should happen is I should win and do this, and this."
Yeah.
And then somehow that is actually what happened, and it's just that shows you how of great a talker he is,
that was the time
he can
when
get away with it.
The sort of NWO guys like Hull and Nash and Hogan had not only contracts, but they had creative control.
They were right.
Who gave them that?
Kevin Nash was writing WCW while he was wrestling.
Ridiculous.
I think that was the sort of time.
Ridiculous.
I think it was Bischoff and Vince Russo.
Yeah, they were just trying to get anything they could to beat WWE.
But I love it.
Yeah, it's crazy that
it's hilarious.
If you got 3 or 4 of your head writers into a room with Hulk and said this is the ending of the match, and on his own he is able to convince you otherwise and to win and go over and keep the belt, then you've got to admire that. I mean, it's an awful thing. He's an awful human being, and he's always has been throughout his career. He's always buried a lot of people, but you've got to admire the fact that he could literally talk his way out of any situation whatsoever, and come out on top for himself. And I
find it hilarious.
It's funny. It's more than anything. You got to laugh at it, mate. Otherwise,
it's like, can you imagine when you're at school, that lad who's constantly in detention and constantly being a naughty pain in the arse, and suddenly he's the head teacher?
Yeah.
And it's like that, what has happened here?
Yeah,
it's carnage.
Right, it's
absolute carnage.
It's ridiculous. But again, it's just funny when it's laughable how ridiculous.
What an industry, yeah.
But it's crazy. But I think that's where, leading back to Triple H, I think that's probably where he gets it from, is that he was, he probably saw that, he grew up with that's his career was molded around Vince and Hulk Hogan, dictating everything that happened in the backstage area. And
Unreal,
he's kind of took the bad parts of it and made it into good parts for himself.
Yeah, he has.
And I think
the industry as well. He's made it into good for the industry as well.
And I think even with him like considering letting NXT be involved in the cruise with Jericho, even Jericho not shutting him down immediately and saying, no, that's ridiculous, we're not going to do that. Like the fact that, and again, they might have always wanted to say no from the minute he suggested it, but the fact that they went away and kind of maybe thought about it for a little bit and then came back to Jericho and were like, no, we're not going to go ahead.
Even the fact that they entertained the thought is enough.
Yeah, and it's enough to show that things are changing.
Things are going in the right way.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Triple H will be the pioneer of this kind of, worldwide togetherness of wrestling, and it's either be absolutely brilliant and it's going to be the best time of wrestling, or it'll be the worst thing in the world. I don't think there's going to be an in between. Personally,
is there ever an in between wrestling?
Well, not really. No, this is the thing. I don't think there's going to be a nice middle that we're going to find. I don't think it's going to happen.
This week has shown the two extremes.
Exactly. No, genuinely. Evolution to Crown Jewel is that's just in one company as well, let alone around the world. So
it's crazy.
We're progressive, but we're also really racist.
It's genuinely
excellent.
And I don't envy any of the big dogs that have to deal with it all, because I imagine if you were Triple H, like, I don't know if my head would work thinking about as many things as he has to think about. He's got his fingers in that many different pies and he's got to juggle them all at the same time and keep everybody happy. If that does become a worldwide stage and he's got pretty much all the major companies balanced on plates, like it can't end well. It can't end well. But maybe it could. It could be the best thing in the world. Like, I don't know. It's weird.
But that's why. Yeah. But that's wrestling, and that's why.
That's wrestling for you.
Crazy.
That's wrestling, everybody.
That's wrestling.
Oh, can that be one of our taglines? And that's wrestling.
That's wrestling.
That's wrestling. Such an ITV thing, that, isn't it? Can you imagine some old bloody game show host saying that?
That's wrestling.
I'm surprised World of Sport hasn't signed off with that yet as a tagline.
Thanks for watching.
Should we get him on the phone?
That's it.
Here,
that's
2 words for you, lads.
Wrestling.
That's wrestling.
In the meantime, we are on Instagram at Staring at the Lights. We are also on Twitter at The Lights Pod. We do write stuff. We do write stuff for RGM.press as well. There are some things that we put up recently. So there's a full review of Evolution and, unfortunately, Crown Jewel. And there's some other stuff as well coming soon. So until next time, we'll see you soon.
Ta-da.
Hasta la vista.